Welcome to Showdown. I'm Mark Kaysen, and it is Friday again. While these weeks just fly by, and on October the 11th, we're down to 24 days, 23 days? Just about the end, almost over for Donald J., who, by the way, is not hesitating to lie as much today as any day. So we'll get into some of that. They caught him today. Doesn't really matter. And no one cares. And the lie is so significant that I have to tell you that it amazes me. None of the television people are hardly talking about it. Here and there, it gets mentioned. Came up a day or two ago. But at that point, when it first came up, Donald wasn't even bothering to lie about it. Now he is. But don't worry. He's been caught. And I'm not even sure what the strategy is by his handlers. Not sure of that. It's hard to say. Anyway, Donald back in the news for everything today, all day long. So let's start with the bad news, at least the bad news on the Democratic Party side, and that is 60 Minutes. It's good and bad news. And in fact, it's exactly the news that I've talked about for so long, and it proves precisely what I've said, which is that there is no fake news. At least the mainstream media isn't that. Mainstream media is honest, straightforward, tells the truth. And when they do something wrong, they tell on themselves. And that's exactly what happened with CBS 60 Minutes. Because the program that was run at the beginning of this week, which had Kamala interviewed for, 20 minutes or so? She answered a question, and I'm not even sure which question it is at this point, but it doesn't matter. She answered a question, and a lot of people thought her answer was awkward and maybe mischaracterizing what she actually believed, but nevertheless, it was her answer. Well, apparently, 60 Minutes ran one version of that. I think it was on Peacock. And another version on the actual 60 Minutes program where the big audience was listening. And they revised the edit from the earlier version, and it made Kamala Harris look better. And I haven't heard all this, so I really don't know the details, but I believe what they're saying. They are saying that the 60 Minutes people revised the edit. And that's bad. No question about it. But how do you think we found out about it? I mean, we didn't find out about it from Donald Trump. We didn't find out about it from someone at the corner grocery store. We found out about it from people connected to 60 Minutes. They told on themselves. They always do. That's how our media works. That's why it's so reliable. That's why it's so outstanding. Because if they do something, anything, that even looks slightly problematic, they tell. So I'm sure we're going to get more detail And at least I'll have the opportunity to dig further into the video and see what the differences are. But it appears, if all that's being said is true, and I assume that it is. I mean, I'm reciting it here in the exact way that I've heard it, which is pretty negative. Keeping in mind that it was 60 Minutes staffers who told the story. Now, we'll see how it all plays out in the end, but it doesn't look great for the 60 Minutes people. It has nothing to do with Kamala Harris. She had no idea what the edits were. She doesn't play any role in any of that. It's all within 60 Minutes. It's all the reporters. So, if 60 Minutes messed with this, they're going to be taken down a notch for their irresponsible behavior. And that's what should happen. No question about it. We want to know. This happens all the time when people make mistakes. We want to know about it. Those on the left, all of us want to know. I understand the people on the right mess around and they try to hide it, like David Pecker. The original fake news, Donald Trump's fake news. There they hide it. They hide it. They get indicted for it. They get convicted for it. 60 Minutes, completely different. We haven't even made it past the week, and 60 Minutes has been revealed for some kind of an edit that they did, which on Yom Kippur is probably appropriate to say was not kosher. This is Yom Kippur. Or it will be tonight anyway. So anyway, here's the deal. 60 Minutes has been caught by themselves, and we all know exactly what was done, or at least pretty close. We know it wasn't good if it's true. Now, there might be an explanation for all of this, but I doubt it. From what I've heard, it's definitely 60 Minutes doing something they shouldn't have done, trying to make Kamala look a little better. If they did it, we should know. Pretty simple. Right, Vic?
Yep, you got it, bud.
Absolutely. Now, let's switch to the other guys, the bad guys. Let's go to Donald. What did he do today? Well, it's not exactly today, but he did deliver a COVID test. In fact, I think several, to Vladimir Putin in Russia back during the COVID pandemic. And when he did this, he hid it, of course. He wasn't getting all of this out to the American people, but he did get it to Vladimir, his boss. So he got it there to Russia, and presumably Vladimir took his test, and who knows? I don't know. Maybe he got his hands on some of that great Merck drug, whatever it is. It's not good stuff. It does, if you've ever taken it, it tastes terrible. Paxlovid, yeah. Paxlovid, it tastes like metal. It's all right. It works. It's really good. I mean, if you get COVID and you take Paxlovid, it knocks it out instantly. But anyway, back in those days, I don't even know if they had it yet. And in any event, Vladimir got his test, even when Americans couldn't get a test. Now, all of this was revealed to Bob Woodward. Not by Donald, but by others. And Woodward reported this. Actually, I think he only had one source. And shortly after he reported it, nothing had been said by Donald. But then a little bit after that, not much, Donald said, it's all a lie. I didn't do it. Never happened. Okay, one problem. Unlike CBS, which tells on itself, Donald does not tell on himself. In fact, he lies. But how do we know it's a lie? Well, because Vladimir Putin got us the information. Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin reported to us that, in fact, Donald gave him the test. So that's the end of that. Good going, Donald. You're a liar. What a surprise. Of course, Donald isn't backing down on his lie. It's just, that's his lie. He tells lies all the time. What does he care? He's got 100 more lies to tell tonight. And when he tells them, everybody will forget the old lies. That's the theory. I am surprised that this isn't all over the news all day long. It's on the news. It's out here. It's just that it's not being played up dramatically. Instead, there's a lot of talk about Kamala Harris and what she's doing with immigration. And yeah, that's the conversation right now. She's giving speeches all over the country. Well, that's great. And I hope she's working a strategy here that's going to be positive for everything that we want, at least on my side. And I think it will be, because everything's headed in that direction. The polls that have come out are dramatically in favor of Kamala. Now, some people say, no, they're not dramatic. In fact, Kamala's ahead in some places, 2, 3, maybe 4. In some places, dead even. But see, here's the problem. If you look at each one of the polls, month by month, they keep getting better and better and better. And in fact, she has improved in most of the polls by well over 10% in the last 2 months. Very short. So Kamala's support is growing, as we can see in the polls, and Donald and his supporters, well, they're just talking about the fact that the lead right now is small. Well, it is small, but it keeps growing. It has grown consistently, and she's ahead in almost all of those states, and the numbers are considerable. They're very important numbers for Kamala and Donald. I mean, Kamala's looking great. Donald's looking horrible. You know that Donald thinks he's doing horribly, because if he were doing well, he wouldn't be out here saying the crazy things he's talking about. This is desperation talk. And that's all it is. And that's all he ever is, because he's always up against the wall. He thought he was going to lose to Hillary Clinton. Not just we thought, he thought. Turns out we were all wrong. Donald became president of the United States and didn't quite know what to do with it. As Barack Obama said last night, and I have said over and over, repeatedly, talking about the economics. Barack Obama had a 75-month economic advance. Just kept going up. Month after month after month. Everything got better for 8 years. Remember now, Barack Obama came in the middle of an absolute economic crisis. Everything was disastrous. George Bush, it was due to the prime real estate market. And the results were looking worse and worse all the time. And just give a little background on it to show how bad it really was. There were insurance companies that had guaranteed that investors would not lose on some of the bets they had made in the bond market. And the result was almost some insurance companies were put out of business. Almost. The federal government stepped in under Barack Obama. The stock market bottomed in March of 2009. And think about that. March of 2009, and Barack Obama took the presidency in January of 2009. So within 2 months, Barack Obama had stopped the free fall, because it was a free fall, put into place some important protections, and then began what we now know as quantitative easing. And lo and behold, months and months of economic expansion. It all turned around. Obama made the right move. Now, somebody could say he was lucky. Maybe he was. But he was also correct. He did the right thing. He turned it around. And, sometimes, a person could say, for example, in COVID, that Joe Biden and those Democrats were fortunate that the positioning of COVID was such that everything was turned in favor of Joe Biden and our country at just the right time for the Democrats. And that's a perfectly okay conclusion. However, it was a health situation. It was the virus itself that made the turn. Now, you go back to Barack Obama, and it wasn't anything that made the turn except for Barack Obama's decisions. He created the turn. He made the economic determinations that dug us out of a very big hole very quickly. So that was a good choice made by the Democrats. And then, of course, there was Donald, who was pretty much just flailing around trying to figure out what to do, lying to everybody as usual, got on TV every day, gave a report. It was all a lie, including you can take all these crazy drugs, you'll be okay. You can take Clorox, inject it into your veins, you'll be all right. All that nutty stuff he told. The horse tranquilizer, all that mess. But that's not what Obama did. Obama turned it around and kept it going. And then he turned over to Donald Trump an economy that was just whirring. Everything was right. Everything was going forward. Donald walks in, takes the reins, and says, "Look at me. I'm a winner." Well, of course, we know in the end, he was a loser. Because once he had to make decisions having to do with COVID, well, he did everything wrong and he didn't give everybody tests. In fact, he withheld tests. In fact, as we now know, he was withholding tests from the American people while he was giving tests to Vladimir Putin. And how do we know? Because Vladimir Putin has now told us so. That's the end of it. The Russians have told us. Donald did exactly what Bob Woodward reported. That's it. And what a surprise. Donald's a liar, and everybody else is just, up and down. We do some things better, some things worse. But when it comes to Donald, nothing is good. It's all bad. Now, I understand there's some people today who notice again that crazy DJT, special purpose acquisition company, went up another $1. 25. It was 80. It went to 12. Now 25. Now we understand that the reason it's 25 is because there is a rumor. Might not be true. But if I were Donald and it's not true, I would get out as fast as I can. And the only problem with that is if it turns out that he spread the rumor, well, then he'll go to jail for that one. Because, you're not allowed to do that if you're an insider, and he's an insider in that mess, that piece of junk. But, things go up and down, and there are people out here who believe that the Elon Musk connection may allow for like a $30 or $40 a share buyout. And if Elon Musk is that dumb, well, then he deserves to lose $5 or $10 billion, which he didn't build anyway, except for through the market price of his Tesla shares. Lucky for him, those shares which had dropped down under 100 are now back up over 200. So that's good. That's extra money he could turn over to Donald. Believe me, Donald's hoping for it. Unless he's already sold today, which I don't think he has. And the only reason I don't is I think if he had, it would be reported. So, we're going to know one way or the other what he does. That company's junk. It's worthless. They make no money. They do nothing. They borrowed some money. I think they borrowed $300 million. Who would lend them $300 million? Guys have to be insane, but they did it. Whichever bank did it, they lent them some money. So they're sitting on some cash, which Donald's probably stealing already. Because you can't just take the cash. Can't just walk off with the money and say it's my company because my name's on it. But leave it to Donald. He doesn't always know those things because when he went to Wharton, he cheated instead of learning how things work. Anyhow, that's the story. One side is the story of 60 Minutes, which got caught in a bad situation, but then reported on itself. And before we're done, they're going to report, I guarantee you, everything that happened. We're going to know every detail. And then there's Donald, a flat-out liar who lied today about what he did with the COVID tests until Vladimir Putin told on him. He snitched. But, they say snitches get stitches, but not if you're Vladimir Putin and you're messing with Donald Trump, because the obsequious puppet just does not have much to say in this. If he's caught, he's caught. And it doesn't really matter to him because he just lies anyway. And if he keeps on lying, that his people will believe every word. Why not? Why not? You know what Donald says? You've got nothing to lose. And the reason you've got nothing to lose is because you've already lost it all. Donald's already stolen it from you, and you just don't know it yet. But he's right. You got nothing to lose because Donald's already done his job. Steal and lie and cheat. Good work. And if you want to tell a big enough lie, you may find that the Kremlin is going to tell on you. And they did. Okay, let's go to another one of Donald's favorite lies this week. Let's go to FEMA. That's a good lie. According to Donald, and we've talked about this for a couple of days. According to Donald, FEMA gives you $750 because you had a flood, you had a hurricane hit your house, your family may have died, your belongings are destroyed, your house could be ruined, whatever it is. In comes FEMA, and they pay you $750. And according to Donald, they then take everything you've got. So all of your property, everything goes to FEMA when you take their $750. Of course, there's just one small problem in this. Not true. Again, not true. Because what is true is that Joe Biden very sensibly and prescient, really, in such a great way, that he foresaw what would happen during this time of problems. And he offered $750 per person if you get caught in one of these floods. Now, that $750 was just a payment toward the eventual amount of money that you would get to dig you out of everything, to really get you out of trouble. But they couldn't give it to you right away because they wouldn't know. They have to tally all the damages, and they have to see what has happened everywhere. And once they see it, once they know it, once they count it up, then they can turn around and offer you money, more money, money to protect your interests, money to take care of your property, money to either rebuild or move or whatever it is you need. Thousands and thousands of dollars per person. But Donald has told his people, really, he's a nice guy. He's told his people, look, don't take any of it, because if you take any money, they will take your property. And by the way, be really careful, because these bad Democrats actually control the climate. In fact, they control it so well that they can create hurricanes, and they can send them like a precision missile to Republican neighborhoods. So they can do great harm to you. In many cases, they may have already harmed you, but now they've got the ability to continue sending out these hurricanes and associated tornadoes, and they can set it right to your house because you're a MAGA voter. How do you prove that one wrong? How do you? I mean, Donald could say anything. You can't prove it. You say it. Democrats deny it. And then where are you? Well, same place you were before. MAGA people saying Donald's our savior, and Democrats wondering how it's possible that even these uneducated people could believe the crazy things that Donald Trump tells you. Because Donald Trump tells you that you're going to lose your property, you simply refuse to take the money. There are stories of people who are desperate today, desperate. And their families are telling them, please take the money. They won't take the money, and they are living in desperation because they're desperate. They need the money, but they won't take it because Donald told them not to. Whatever Donald tells them, that's what they do. And unfortunately, it could cause people's lives. They need the money. They need the protection. They need the assistance. But Donald says, leave it alone because it will cost you in the end everything you've got or everything you ever will have. They can target you with a future hurricane or tornado. They can take your house. They can do anything they want. All they have to do is get you to take that $750, and they're off to the races on the Democratic Party side. They'll take everything you own. So Joe Biden gets on television, and he sounds, regular Joe Biden. And he says, a little angrier. He says, how could these people be so cruel? They're willing to destroy their own people by refusing the assistance that the federal government is offering them, which they will then turn around later on, of course, and say no one was willing to help them. But some people could die. There's no question about that. Children could die. It couldn't be more dangerous. But does Donald back down? Absolutely not. He doubles down. He quadruples down. He tells more stories about what you won't get. You won't get anything if you try to do business with a bunch of Democrats, because they just want to take everything you've got. They want to destroy your life. You're a red state person, and they're here to wipe out the red states with hurricanes and tornadoes and all the other things that they're able to focus in some pinpoint fashion on what they call red communities. Joe Biden says this is insane. We can't do that. Donald Trump says, don't touch the money. Don't take anything. Don't take their assistance. If they offer to come with a helicopter, run. Yeah, don't work with the federal government because they'll take what you've got. They'll ruin your life. It'll be the end of you. Many of us understand that even if the federal government were capable of doing this, that they wouldn't. But that's not where we are. We're at the point where we're discussing why they would come and take everything from you because you're a Republican. And when they take everything from you, you'll be sitting here broke. No money, no assistance, no future. All because Donald is trying to scare people into voting for him. So that's where we are. And the scare game goes on. And I suspect that this weekend, we're going to hear some amazing stories. You talk about entertainment, except for it could be killing people. Doesn't make it very entertaining. But yeah, in a sense, because you wonder, what's the next move that Donald will come up with? You wonder and you fear. And you should fear because the damage that he's doing to his own people. That's the incredible part. His own people. Donald says that CBS should lose its license right now. The license should be revoked, and they should no longer be allowed to broadcast because they messed with this edit, which CBS reported. Not on the air yet, but they will. I mean, it's all going to be on the air. It's all going to be in front of us, and we'll know exactly what they did, who did it, why they did it. It's all going to be on the table. How do you know? Because it's 2/3 of the way there already. There's no way to stop this. The story is going to be told, but it's going to be told by 60 Minutes. They'll tell the story. They'll do what every great news organization does. They will tell on themselves. I've told this story so long. You know, I've waited for a good example of this to come along, and here we are. Because 60 Minutes is indeed telling on itself, and they will. Whatever tapes have to be provided, they're going to be here. Whatever it is that the public needs to know, 60 Minutes is going to tell. So we'll know exactly what was done in support of Kamala Harris. End of story. That's all we need to know. We just need to know what these people have done. Now, the other side of the coin is, which Donald certainly doesn't want to talk about, is there are things that these people have not done, which Donald accuses them of. And when they deny it and they say, we didn't do it, well, Donald just keeps telling the story, and it does cause problems. It causes harm. It causes harm to the public who gets misinformation. It causes harm to these organizations, which in effect are defamed. Of course, it's very difficult to sue a media organization in the middle of a presidential campaign when you're accusing fraud or lies or misinformation or however you want to claim it. And in fact, it has happened. Somebody doctored the video. Somebody changed it so that the public would have a better view of Kamala. But within a matter of days, we know that it was done. 60 Minutes doesn't hide. The New York Times does not hide. The Washington Post does not hide. All of these people tell on themselves. There's no other way to do it. If you're in journalism, things are going to happen. And then the key is that you have to report what has happened. We need to know what the bad guys are doing. We need to know what the good guys are doing when they turn bad for a minute. We need to know what everybody's doing. That's the job of the media. They're supposed to investigate and they're supposed to tell. I mean, there's not much more to say about it except that there's a degree of integrity, a word which Donald Trump does not even understand remotely. There's a degree of integrity that can only be found in organizations that are profoundly truthful. And that's what these people are. When they get caught, they tell. But the people who catch them are their own people. And that's what works best. Because we don't have to sit around wondering if these news organizations are telling the truth. Because we know they are. And we know that if they're not, it will only take a matter of a short period of time, and then they'll tell. And when Donald calls for the end of CBS, you know, you got to be kidding. For what? cost Fox $800 million when they lied about the election companies. And there's another one of those lawsuits out for another couple $1 billion. Fox will probably pay. They'll be forced to. Surprised they haven't told already in order to cut off the damage. But, well, I guess they're going to let it go further a little bit more. But I don't know why. But apparently they will. Now, this is a bad group of people who are up to horrible things, led by Donald, who is the greatest liar in the history of the presidency. You know, go back just maybe 6 months or a year and think about it. People weren't saying Donald's a liar. Oh, they might have said it off the air, but they didn't get on the air and say these things. They were cautious. They didn't want to be caught saying things that weren't true, so they hesitated. Now, as we know, that hesitation gave way to a 34-count felony conviction. Donald's a convicted felon on fraud charges. He has raped at least one woman, E. Jean Carroll. There are more cases out here against him. One of them is a superseding document, which we've all taken a look at and considered and realized that Jack Smith is a very smart man. And he's getting the job done. And Donald's eventually going to pay a price, and especially if he loses this election. And guess what? He's going to lose. But I'll tell you how you can win. You can win at Wendy's. Wendy's is at 18,000 Chesterfield Airport Road, and they've got great food. They've got the wings. They've got the patty melts, the hamburgers and cheeseburgers. They've got smoked meat. They've got baby back ribs, which I love. Terrific iced tea, which is certainly my favorite drink. And then on top of all of that, salad and pizzas and just a great environment for dinner. So hang on while we're here on the air, but soon afterwards, go straight to Wendy's, 18,000 Chesterfield Airport Road. And if you're not in exactly this vicinity, well, you can run down the road to Defiance, 2999 South Highway 94. And that is the great food of Wendy's. Now, at 4506 Hampton, well, you're not going to eat the jewelry, that's for sure. But you're going to get great jewelry at Jewels on Hampton, terrific designs, and the help of Al, who is a terrific jewelry business expert who is honest and will buy and sell both jewelry and, well, coins. It's all good. It's all profitable for everybody. A little bit for Jewels on Hampton people, a little bit for you. Everybody comes out in great shape. And when it's all over, they'll even fix your watch. No, really, they do. They're great when it comes to watch repairs, and their jewelry is extensive and very, very nice. They've got cases filled with it all through their store. So go check them out. 4506 Hampton. That is Jewels on Hampton. Now you can see that once again, I'm wearing one of my favorite suits. You know, pretty conservative, actually, considering the fact that I'm a left-wing radical or radical leftist. You call it anything you want. And the bottom line is the St. Louis Suit Company will even dress radicals and conservatives and everybody in between. They'll sell you a tie for $5, which is ridiculous. But don't call it communism. It's not that. I mean, they just want to encourage you to come to their store so that you'll buy their suits, you'll buy their shoes and their shirts. It's just, that's what they do. Great, great clothing. At the St. Louis Suit Company, it's on the corner of Forsyth and Central in Clayton. They have been there for 40. No, see, I get mixed up. Because, it's Telena's that's there for 40 years. But these guys have been there for 30. And believe me, 30 years in a suit company, they're the best. So check them out, Forsyth and Central. That is the St. Louis Suit Company. They'll help you also with your wedding attire if you're on the verge of getting married. Always a good thing to do. And at the St. Louis Suit Company, they will handle all of that important wedding attire for your people. Okay, now it's 40 years, and that's 40 years at Telena's. Telena's at 141 and Olive in the shopping center there where they've got Dierberg's and lots of other little shops. And then right next to it all, Telena's great food, and I promise you, it is incredible food. They have the best spaghetti and meatballs on the planet. And when I tell you that their Italian food is better than every other Italian restaurant, I believe I'm telling you the truth. You'll have to check with the Kremlin, but I'm telling the truth, unlike Donald, and they'll tell you at the Kremlin he's lying. But no, I'm telling the truth that Telena's is the best, and on Fridays, you cannot beat Spaghetti and Meatballs Day on Showdown at Telena's. I've done that for years, and everybody loves it, and they love the food. I mean, it's not like they give it away, but boy, is it good. It is terrific food at Telena's. Okay. So we're heading into the weekend shortly, and it'll be interesting to see what new lies Donald can concoct in the next 48 hours before we get to Monday, when we're down to a flat 3 weeks. So think about that. This weekend goes by, and when we show up Monday at 4 o'clock, when Vic gets on the air early in the morning, I'm telling you, we'll be down to 3 weeks left. That's amazing. This is going to be quite an election. And we know, of course, that there are some obvious problems. No, not that our government is cheating. That's not what's happening. No, it's a little different than that. Donald's lying, and then he's sending people out to these polling areas to try to do whatever he can to muck it all up. So he can then turn around and say, they've destroyed this election. Turn it over to the House of Representatives and let's see who they put into office. I mean, that's his plan. It's Rutherford B. Hayes from beginning to end. I love to tell the Rutherford B. Hayes story because it's really a story of American racism and hatred towards black people. And it's important to tell those stories so that people do understand that, America's been like that. and in many ways remains like that. And I've always said I love America. But, we're supposed to tell on ourselves, just like the media. You tell when you do bad. And with regard to black people, we've done really bad. And so we don't let people vote. We don't let people register to vote. That's going on right now. There's a lawsuit out there which is all focused in black areas. And the judge has said, we're not going to extend any of the registration. So just if you've registered, you're in. If you haven't, you're out. Now, lawyers are working on this, but the Republicans are furiously trying to shut down the potential for any new registrants because every one of those votes they fear could be for Democrats. And yeah, I would guess they may be, given what Donald's up to. And given that in the last minute, people finding out about it might rush to the polls and say, let me get in on this. We'll see. But I can tell you that Donald is sending people out just like Rutherford B. Hayes did. And Hayes, he had his way of going after black voters because here's what he was doing. He was in fact ending Reconstruction by taking all the troops out of the South so that white people could go crazy, which they did. They absolutely did. And they loved Hayes, former governor from Ohio, and they loved him. He did everything they hoped for. And it did usher in Jim Crow. Now, past that, what happened was the actual election results, which put Hayes in charge because Hayes said, look, even though Tilden won, he won the popular vote, he won the electoral vote. But he said, that is Hayes and his people, that there were things that happened in that election that made it really bad. And it had to be thrown into the House of Representatives, which is exactly where it went. It did go there. And like today, the House would and did back then put into power the person who lost. Hayes lost and became president. Donald will lose and is hoping that he can be like Rutherford B. Hayes, and become president. That's the playbook. 90 areas of the United States have been infested with Trump lawyers attempting to mess this whole thing up so that Donald can't lose. Time will tell, and we'll find out, how it plays out in the courts. But, the courts have not been so good to Donald. I understand in a few cases, immunity, yes. Judge Cannon, if you can call her a judge, in Southern Florida, she dismissed the case, but it's on appeal and it's not going anywhere. It's going to go right back into effect, and she probably won't be the the judge on it anymore because they're gonna remove her in the 11th district. They know what they're doing. They've gone through this twice before. They're not dealing with this again. Third time, she's gone. So we'll see. That's what a lot of people think. That's what I think. I think this will be the end of Aileen Cannon. Now, I also think that on November 26th, there's going to be a sentencing of Donald in the Manhattan case. And when that comes, depending on how insane Donald decides to be with Judge Merchan, and I would think that he's going to go all out, because that's what Donald does, go all out against the judge and end up in jail for 30 to 60 days. Now, they could do 4 years, but I don't think that that's really where Judge Merchan is. I think if he does anything, he might do 30 to 60 days just to let Donald know that he can be pulled into jail anytime people want in the justice system when he is found guilty, which he is. Donald's guilty. He is a guilty, convicted felon. That's what he is. He acts like it every day. Lies and cheats and steals. Yeah, go buy one of those $100,000 watches. I wonder where that's going to get you. You better run down to the Jules on Hampton people and hope that they can fix that watch, because my guess is it won't even work on day one. You know, everything that Donald touches dies. There's a book with that name. It's pretty accurate. But anyway, we've got the people who can fix the watch for you. So all you have to do is, go spend $100,000, your last $100,000, and get yourself a nice little watch. Probably is little. It's probably worth $100. Probably gets it out of the Cracker Jack box. But that's I don't know. That's just my theory. We'll have to see. So we've got all of that. Kamala will be all over the country all weekend long talking to people. And Donald, well, he's turned down more debates. Kamala says, debate me. Donald says, no, I won't. He says there's no time left. No time left. Where's he going? What's he so busy doing that he can't run down and have a debate? It's no problem. He doesn't have to prepare for it because he doesn't know anything. All he's got to do is walk in there and start calling names. He's done it before. He could do it again. Oh, yeah, I understand. It might hurt him. I guess that's why he doesn't want to do it, because he would like to be president of the United States, which is a complete impossibility at this point. Believe me, in 3 weeks, in 3 days, you will know what I'm telling you now. Donald is never again going to be the president of the United States. Maybe the president of the Prisoners Association, as I always say, but definitely not the United States. Donald is a loser. And that's a great book, by the way. There's a book, it's called The Lucky Loser, all about how Donald has lost everywhere, every time, and always managed to hang on just enough to get a few dollars back in his pocket to try again. Mark Burnett saved him with that idiotic television show, which really just allowed the American people, sort of like I always say, if you were to believe that Marcus Welby could take out your appendix, or that Robert Young could have done it. That's the better one. So that's just like believing that Donald Trump was some kind of a famous business success and he could save your life. Well, he could save his life if you believe what he says and give him everything that you've got, which would make him a crook. But that's good, because we've already convicted him for all of that and more. Okay. 3 weeks to go when we get back. We'll be back on Monday. Remember, Wendy's, Jules on Hampton, St. Louis Suit Company, and Telena's. I'm Mark Kaysen. This is Showdown. Good night.